I briefly got into this. I briefly got into this yesterday, but I want to look a little bit closer because there's a new poll out, and I think Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania is going to decide the election once again. I don't think anything else has dramatically changed on the electoral map. I think Florida, unfortunately, is going to be Republican again, most likely. I think when you look at swing states, I think Ohio has leaned a little bit more conservative. It might be in play for the Democrats, but I think Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania are the deciding factors. I really do. This poll, it was with the Detroit News, shows that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are both beating Donald Trump by 12 points, 53 to 41% in Michigan. So that's pretty good. So if you're politically agnostic, if you just want to beat Trump and you'll vote blue no matter who, you'll say, oh great, either way we're going to beat Trump in Michigan. Which again, if you follow in politics, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they will decide this election. The only other state that I think could be a true shocker is Arizona. I think Arizona is slowly becoming a little bit less conservative. And I don't think Trump won Arizona by that much. But anyway, so Michigan. To the naked eye, oh, great. If I just want to beat Trump, I win either way. Bernie will beat him in Michigan, or Biden will beat him in Michigan, because they're both up 12 points. Not so far. Not so fast. Not so fast. So if you look a little closer into the poll, Biden leads Trump 53% to 41%, with 4% undecided, and was the only top candidate from either party with favorable name identification. Wait till Michigan finds out about middle class Joe, Union Man Joe, and his love of NAFTA, the TPP, and every single trade deal that has decimated Michigan and the Rust Belt. But I digress. And this poll also showed that he had the strongest support of independents. That was interesting to me. There was no link to actually find the raw poll. I wanted to see how much more favorable did Joe Biden, how much stronger was Joe Biden among independents than Bernie Sanders? Because previous data tells us Bernie Sanders actually has the strongest favorabilities among independents, but I couldn't find a link to where the actual poll was. So, all right, Biden up 12 points, and this is particularly in the state of Michigan, and it says he was strongest among independents. It also says he polled particularly well with female voters, despite recent accusations that the 76-year-old Democrat made women uncomfortable by violating their personal space. Biden is, quote, the only candidate for president on either side of the ballot that independents like, and that is a dramatic finding, some pollster said. So, before I get to the Bernie part of that poll in Michigan, that's complete BS, that Biden is the only candidate that independent voters like. That's just not true. Not true at all. So Bernie Sanders in 2016, if you remember, did incredibly well in open primary states. Open primary states are when independent voters, Democrat voters can vote, not just Democrats, independent voters. That's why he did incredibly well in Indiana, Rhode Island, Oregon, I believe, and many other states that were open primaries. 538, which, not a big Nate Silver fan. I think he's pretty much if you look in the definition of a coastal cocktail crowd liberal who's completely out of touch, Nate Silver's picture is right there. However, this piece on 538 is accurate. All right, 12 years later, another presidential candidate, Bernie Sanders, this is from 2016, another presidential candidate from Vermont is seeking the Democratic nomination. Like Dean, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders aims to outflank his opponent from the left. But unlike Dean, Sanders does much better among independents than among Democrats. In New Hampshire, for instance, Sanders won Democrats by 4 percentage points while winning independents by nearly 50 percentage points, a split we've seen repeatedly since then. Some of Sanders' strongest performances in primaries have come in places such as New Hampshire, Michigan, and Wisconsin, states whose rules allow independents to vote in either primary. In fact, to date, Sanders has compiled an unexpected record, performing very well in caucuses, but having won just a single closed primary. So why is Sanders doing so well among independents? It appears to be driven not by their ideology so much as their dislike of partisan politics. And that implication for Sanders' prospects in the upcoming primaries in New York, which was rigged, in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Maryland, all of which are closed to non-Democrats. Understanding why Sanders does so well among independents in the Democratic primaries can also give us hints about his appeal to moderate voters should he make the general election. So I just read that to basically debunk what this Michigan poll that says, oh, Joe Biden is doing the best among independents. Well, they didn't link to the actual poll, so I can't look at the numbers to see how favorable is Joe Biden doing among independents. I would venture to guess, based on Bernie Sanders' performance during the 2016 primaries, Bernie Sanders will do way better than Joe Biden in open primary states, because I don't see a whole lot of independents voting for a NAFTA-loving, TPP-loving, Wall Street deregulating-loving, Iraq war-loving, crime bill writer, creepo like Joe Biden. The Michigan poll has Biden and Bernie both beating Trump by 12 points. But when you look into the actual numbers, it's a lot better for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, a Democratic socialist, who, they always have to add the socialist part. A Democratic socialist who won Michigan's 2016 presidential primary leads Trump 53 to 41%, with 5% undecided. Unlike Biden, he has a polling advantage over Trump among male voters, and is doing particularly well among men with only a high school degree, a demographic that helped elect the president in 2016. Quote, Sanders has that uniqueness that he kind of disrupts the Trump pattern of less educated male voters, this pollster said. Biden exacerbates it. So let me read that again. Sanders has a uniqueness that he kind of disrupts the Trump pattern of less educated male voters. If you read again, he does very well among male voters and is doing particularly well among men only with a high school degree, a demographic that helped elect the president in 2016. So I don't really, listen, I'm skipping the whole debate about should we focus on the white working class, should we focus on blacks and Latinos and all that stuff. I don't really care who Bernie Sanders or who the Democrats focus on. I care, focus on whichever group you got to focus on to win. To win. I don't, white working class, black working class, identity politics, it doesn't matter. How will Bernie Sanders win? How will a Democratic Party nominee win? And the answer is by picking off 20 to 25% of Donald Trump's voters. I even think if you pick off 10 to 15% of Donald Trump's voters, there's a chance that a Democratic nominee could win. Because the Democratic nominee, for the most part, is going to get the Democratic vote. I think older Democrats would even hold their nose and vote for Bernie Sanders. I really do. I think young people would come out in droves for Bernie Sanders. If all things are equal and the Democratic candidate can get older people, can get younger people, can get black people, can get Latino people, that still doesn't necessarily beat Trump. Hillary Clinton got a lot of those from all of those groups. The problem was she did not inspire those Reagan Democrats. And 10% of those who voted for 10% of Democrats who voted for Barack Obama switched to Donald Trump. So which candidate can get the Democratic votes, but also take voting share away from Trump? Well, this poll shows you the candidate in Michigan in particular, and I get pretty sure you'll have a similar story in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania because it's very similar demographics. It's predominantly white, working class, and those states have been destroyed by NAFTA, trade deals, offshoring of jobs, deindustrialization, automation, and on and on. And if you're living in Michigan, if you're living in Wisconsin, if you're living in Pennsylvania, if you're living in Ohio, and you're watching, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this goes hand in hand with what I experienced firsthand on the 2016 campaign trail, because I made it a habit to interview Trump voters at his rallies, and I asked, hey, if not Trump, who would you vote for? You know, thinking maybe I'll get Ted Cruz, maybe I'll get Ben Carson, somebody in this clown car. I got probably dozens of people who told me Bernie Sanders without even thinking twice, because Trump got a lot of voters that were, some of them were traditional Republicans, but a lot of them were basically have voted both Democrat or voted Republican, depending on the candidate. So Trump got the anti-establishment, yes, white working class voter. I don't find it racist to say you do want to get white working class voters. You also want to get a huge turnout from black voters and Latino voters and millennial voters. I don't think it's bad to say, yes, he should get, he wants to get those voters that voted for Trump, which were white, largely working class voters, but also he wants to bring out an unprecedented amount of young people. He wants to bring out voters who haven't voted in many elections. Who is going to have a chance to pick off 10 to 20% of Trump voters in Michigan? Well, this poll tells you, Bernie Sanders, right there. Unlike Biden, he has a polling advantage over Trump among male voters and is doing particularly well among men with only a high school degree, a demographic that helped elect the president in 2016. Quote, Sanders has that uniqueness that he kind of disrupts the Trump pattern of less educated male voters. Biden exacerbates it. Well, Hillary Clinton did fairly well with those with college degrees. She did very poorly with white men without college degrees. So, two things. Who's going to get 10 to 15% of Trump voters? And who is going to get back those Obama voters that switched over to Trump? Because part of Trump's voting bloc was Obama voters that switched over to Trump. It's Bernie. You want to know why? Because I was there. It wasn't Putin. It wasn't Putin that convinced those people in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio to vote for Donald Trump. It was NAFTA. As soon as Trump was hollering about NAFTA at these rallies, it was kind of like The Lion King with the hyenas pouncing. They were pouncing. They loved it so much. When he said, I'm getting rid of NAFTA, and I'm bringing the jobs back, and I'm taking it to Goldman Sachs. Of course he was full of it. Of course he was full of beep, trying not to get demonetized. But this is the way to beat him. This is the way to beat Donald Trump. So I want you to save this article. I'm putting it in the live chat. Excuse me, I'm putting it in the super chat. This is a super chat. Because I don't want to hear it from the Democratic Party if they push Joe Biden, and when Joe Biden loses, the data and the evidence was right there that Bernie Sanders could pick off a substantial amount of Donald Trump voters. It's right there. They're just blind. As we've exposed that these polls are BS because they're oversampling people over 50, they're undersampling people under 50. A lot of these polls also, if you look at it, a very large number of people don't know Joe Biden's record in the Senate. So you wait till Donald Trump starts calling him NAFTA Joe. You wait till Donald Trump starts calling him TPP Joe. You wait. The other thing is not only is Donald Trump going to expose him, but Joe Biden is actively fundraising as we speak. Well, not as we speak. He's actively scheduling fundraisers with union busters. He's actively scheduling fundraisers with donors that were on Obama's TPP committee. Donors that tried to push through the TPP with Obama. Obama had a TPP committee. One of the donors that's setting up a fundraiser for Joe Biden in San Francisco was on the TPP committee and was pushing the TPP. You don't think the voter? Okay, so these people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they suddenly are going to not care about NAFTA and TPP when they were very, very concerned about it in 2016, and that's one of the big reasons that they voted for Trump and were against Hillary Clinton? I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statusquo.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statusquo.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.